to push the ball, run at any opportunity they have. I think early Milwaukee will try and test Parrish's ankle, looking to get it to Sigma.
Cummings is 34. The Bucks in their traveling green, Celts in their home white. Cross to John Lucas, who opens with the three off the iron. Bird runs down the first rebound.
Now coming this way, Boston would love to get Larry Bird involved early.
And especially late. That's the way they ball today. McHale misses, rebound. 0 for 2, and Ainge gives the Celts a third scoring opportunity. Parrish.
That reminds you a little bit about Willis Reed coming out of that locker room for the Knicks when they beat the Lakers for that World Championship.
Cummings glides and then hits Pressey, who's wide open, and has he been hot in the last couple games for the Bucks.
And that's something that the Celtics are willing to give up, that perimeter shot. They know they must stop that penetration of this basketball team.
Bird. Sigma. And position on Parrish. Interception, Bird. He wanted Moncrief. He telegraphed the pass, and Bird goes in, and the blocking foul is called on Sigma, his first. I thought Jack Sigma had pretty good position on that, but apparently he was not sacked.
We see this outlet pass. Now you'd think it's just Jack Sigma's fault. Well, Pressey just released a little too much on him, not giving him a good target.
Bird, one of the great free throw shooters, has not been up to par for him so far in this series.
Right away, I can just feel the intensity of this Boston Celtic basketball team.
So the Bucks must withstand that opening salvo here by the Celts. They were able to do it in Milwaukee the other night when they came back from a 15-point Boston lead. Cummings is the man Nelson wants off early. Moncrief has been a scoring machine. Pressey takes one from the right corner and buries it.
Well, Casey Jones is not too upset with that because they did stop that penetration.
But Johnson goes hard to the glass. That fierce battle we expect to see underneath. The ball was touched last by Boston. Lucas presses hard. Lucas glides, and Parrish was there for the block. The ball out of bounds, and you can see that Parrish is fighting through considerable pain. The key issue is that left ankle.
And I think the more he plays, the looser it will get. The big thing is when you take him out of the basketball game, that will stiffen up.
Sigma up over the top, brought Parrish outside.
And Sigma will have that shot all day because Robert Parrish with that ankle won't be able to get up aggressively.
Ainge, his first shot into Sigma's hands. Outlet in the middle. Lucas pushes again. Cummings on the left. Beautiful bank shot for Coach Don Nelson.
And a good decision by Cummings. If he took it all the way to the basket, he might have picked up a charging foul.
Sort of a half-court pickup by the Buck defense, being very aggressive here early on. And this is the 7th game. The winner to take on Chuck Daly's Detroit Pistons. Spinning inside is Johnson. And for Casey Jones, he wants Johnson to go hard to the glass here this afternoon.
And anytime he sees Lucas on him, he'll try and take him down low.
Now Moncrief brings Dennis outside. Goes the other way for the pick, getting inside. And he drew the foul. The first on Johnson.
I was very concerned, as we said in the opening, would the Bucks come in here today feeling satisfied with what they've accomplished to this point, coming back from a 3-1 deficit against this Celtic team. But they appear to start out this ball game that they're not satisfied, that their goal is a lot higher.
Moncrief's stats, the leader, the spiritual leader of this Milwaukee franchise, if you will. He had some problems with his right shoulder after that incident involving Ainge the other night. And he told us in the pregame warm-ups that he felt pretty good. Some pain, but he didn't think it would bother him.
Now we see Bucks going to that trap, trying to force the ball out of Dennis Johnson's hands.
Hale's jump hook is short from the iron, and Moncrief got to the glass. It was all Milwaukee green underneath. Quick pass back to Lucas. Lucas penetrates. Now Cummings is open on the left side. That penetration draws the defense in and opens things up for the Bucks. They're off very well in this game.
Well, you see Moncrief clapping his hands. He's into this basketball game.
Inside the Bird. His first field goal to go along with his 2 earlier free throws. Moncrief, Hale jumped out in shot. Bird defensive rebound. Here's Ainge on the right wing. McHale ahead of him. Ainge cuts around to the other side. Beautiful driving layup by Danny Ainge.
And that's something Danny Ainge has not been doing, finishing off his drives.
Sigma listening to Nelson. Comes down to the attack. Lucas quarterbacking. Sigma keeping Parrish out. Parrish sloughs to the middle. Ball movement left side. Sipping into Sigma. And Parrish was there on the inside.
Game is close. I don't anticipate K.C. Jones going to his bench. If they get a lead, he would rotate his players a little bit more. But if it's tight, and that's what Don Nelson felt, if he could stay close early and get to that fourth period, they had a great shot to win this basketball game.
Don Nelson sends Ricky Pierce into the game here early. And Sidney Moncrief takes a break for substitution. Field goals, Boston is 5 of 12, make it 5 of 13 as Sigma rebounds. The Bucks are 6 of 13, and Pressey goes in for the layup. That's 6 points by Pressey in the opening period, and a 5-point Milwaukee lead again. The Bucks did not want to play from behind here today in the Boston Garden. It was critical. Parrish waits inside and with his patience puts down the easy layup.
That's just great vision by Larry Bird finding Parrish. He had to see through 5 players to be able to make that pass.
Lucas cuts and Ainge is there. Glide inside. Great ball movement. Pressey the open man.
Well, Paul Pressey truly is a story. Last week when we did the game, he was shooting 19% from the field, and now he's over the last 3 games shooting over 61% from the field. Hale
with an injured ankle and an injured knee. Ainge short on the jump shot. Pierce out with the rebound. It's 4-on-2. Now 3-on-2, and they'll hit Lucas. He'll take the 3. His second 3-point shot on the money. Well, the Celtics are just getting back very poorly defensively. And Milwaukee, as soon as they get that rebound, they're getting the mismatch at the other end. It's either 4-on-2, 3-on-2, and they're getting the good shot opportunities. Illegal defense being called. That was Ed Rush. Illegal defense call against the Bucks, the first one. He is working this game along with Hugh Evans. So Hugh Evans and Ed Rush draw Game 7 here this afternoon in the Boston Garden. The impact John Lucas has had on this ball club, they have completely changed their style since he joined this ball club. Looking to run, looking to push it up the court. To Parrish, great pass. Shot not there. McHale stays with it, has it knocked away, and he is fouled. That was Lucas, and that's the second personal on the veteran. Now that's one way you stop the transition game, when you pound the offensive glass, and that's the approach that the Celtics have. Injured ankle, extra protection. Right down on his left ankle is what you put on your knee, a knee support. It just keeps the knee warm. It appears that it was just irritating McHale, and he just pushed it down around his ankle. That's what happens when you missed your first 3 shots. You pull it down. Tried to play with one shoe for a short time in Milwaukee the other night. Now we see the isolation. Excuse me, Brent. Looking to isolate against Parrish. Sigma moves inside, missed the finger roll, and the ball hit last by Dennis Johnson. Bucks ball with Moncrief coming in. And we see already the way Don Nelson is rotating his players, whereas K.C. Jones is stuck with his starting 5. Ainge going with Lucas. They'll look for the pick and roll. Zips it out of Pierce, and he was fouled. Billy, what Don Nelson wants offensively? Well, what he wants, and this time, though, we see the Celtics do get back defensively as a team. And we'll see they have 4 players right here in the lane. Now, they do not force the pass over here to the wing. They allow that penetration by Pressey. Coming right through. And yesterday, K.C. Jones speaking out on his defense's inability to seal up that middle. either pack it in and stop that penetration or pack it up and head for an early vacation.
You know, that's the frustrating thing coaching-wise. We look at this Celtic team. They've won 2 world championships together. They know what they're supposed to be doing out on this court, but they're not executing it on the court. And Casey Jones was very upset yesterday with the effort his team was putting forth, besides the concentration level.
Waiting for a cutter, gets into Bird. Moncrief takes it. They quickly double. Johnson side, no help, and here's Seasting. He waits for Bird. Brewer picks him up on the switch. Now the shot clock down to 4, and Johnson fires up a missed 3. McHale runs it down. Second chance of a good hustle. Seasting and McHale improves his position on the drive.
Well, we see the key so far for the Celtics hanging in this game has been the offensive glass.
Brewer comes down with Pierce, Cummings, Moncrief, and Lucas. Lucas with the hot hand early for the Bucks. He has scored 10. Pierce penetrates for the jump shot. Can't get it to roll, and the foul goes against Milwaukee. Brewer was coming up high on Larry Bird that time. And Sam Vincent checks into the game. Lucas will sit down for the first time in this game. Jack Sigma returns. Cummings also sits down alongside him. So the Bucks lineup will have Brewer, Sigma, Pressey, Moncrief, and Pierce. And Robert Parrish soon to return for Coach Casey Jones.
Both teams are in the penalty.
For the Celtics, they have Vincent, Bird, Parrish, Johnson, and Kite as McHale sits down.
Offensively, they'll be looking for, I would suspect, either Dennis Johnson or Larry Bird. I'm not sure how Parrish feels about getting the basketball. What he's been doing is pounding the offensive glass.
As a result of that, the Celtics have closed back to within 4. Without that number, the Bucks would be in total command here in the opening period. Back to Pierce. Brewer wants it against Kite. He wants to run the hook shot. He hits it. Chance for a 3-point play. And he shot that hook with a great deal of confidence.
And what they're doing now, Milwaukee, is they're looking to get the ball either to Pressey, matched up against Vincent, or they're looking to get the ball into Brewer, who's matched up against Greg Kite. 2 mismatches. They feel that that's a strength for them.
So Parrish reaching back on Brewer, commits his second personal of the game. Kite wrestles the rebound away, and the Celtics come down. Closing minute and a half here in the opening period. Vincent wants it back outside Johnson's hands.
We see the scrambling defensively by Milwaukee, taking the Celtics out of their set offense.
And Bird to save it. Vincent hustles. After it now was Pressey, and here's Moncrief. Moncrief to the glass. And he drew the foul. That's Bird's first personal foul.
Well, we see 2 things. We see how this defense has really got the Celtics confused. The other thing, loose balls. We see the Bucks just a step quicker than the Celtics getting these loose balls.
They talk about Celtic pride, Celtic green, all those banners hanging above, and you wonder, does it really mean anything? Well, they have played in 13 Game 7s throughout the history of this storied franchise here on the Boston Garden, and they have won 11 of those 13. You bet it means something. Johnson on the drive, and it was not a clean block. Well, he'll come and shoot a pair, and that's 2 fouls on Brewer with Craig Hodges stepping on to the floor, and he's been a spark plug for Don Nelson and the Bucks in this series too.
Now, one thing Larry Bird says about Dennis Johnson, you know when he is ready for the big game, and that's when he's driving that basketball to the hoop.
That is the first Celtic miss today at the free throw line, 6 of 7, and the Bucks are 8 of 9.
Now one thing we have to watch for now that Milwaukee will get possession of the ball with 57 seconds left in this first period is Craig Hodges looking for the three-point shot.
Confusion as to whether or not it's legal for Pierce to enter the game. Just Percy, the alternate, over there clarifying things for the score, and Pierce on the floor, and with the 2 fouls, Brewer sits down for Coach Nelson.
Now what we see Casey Jones bringing Kite out. What Don Nelson has done is brought his small lineup in, which has been so effective against this bigger Celtic ball club.
The last 57 today, joining Ain, Johnson, Bird, and Parrish.
Now I would think whoever Bird is matched up against, they would look to go to that player. Now he's guarding Ricky Pierce.
We're live at the Boston Garden with Billy Cunningham. I'm Brent Musburger. Game 7, Eastern Conference semifinal. The Milwaukee Bucks with the ball against the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics. And Sigma hitting the outside shot makes it 36-27 Milwaukee.
But that's so much pressure it puts on Robert Parrish to come out and play Jack Sigma. And if he has to come out, it's going to open up the lanes.
Ainge responds with a jump shot, his second field goal in the opening period. Pressey slowing it down with time running out here in the opening period. Getting the final shot for Coach Nelson and the Bucks. Back into the hands of Sigma. Fires up the miss. Parrish out with the rebound, and the first period has come to an end. And Milwaukee very pleased. Casey Jones and the Boston Celtics are behind it, 36-29. Here on the parquet floor, the Bucks have been extremely impressive. The Celtics, though, in one category, have certainly held the upper hand here this afternoon, and that is offensive rebounds. That has kept them in the game. Lucas high for Milwaukee and Bird for Boston. A summary of the first period here. You know, there have been 4 teams in the history of the NBA who have come back from 3-1 deficit to win 7-game playoffs. Got a little pencil and paper, have some fun. The 68 Boston Celtics, the 70 Los Angeles Lakers, the 79 Washington Bullets, and the 81 Boston Celtics. See how many of those starters you can write down. I'll give you some of the names as the afternoon unfolds. You'll remember a lot of them. There's some Hall of Famers in the bunch, believe me. It'll be Ainge, Johnson taking the shot, and McHale rebounding all alone. There's offensive rebound number 9. Billy, without offensive rebounds, the Celtics would be out of it early.
Absolutely. Jack Sigma did not check Kevin McHale off the boards.
So the Celtics playing with desire, but the Bucks have brought skill, and a left-handed underneath layup by Jack Sigma.
I cannot remember Jack Sigma playing any better at the offensive end of the court.
Milwaukee green jerseys underneath the glass at this end. How well do they seal off? There's Ainge's shot. Not well again. Parrish reaching up over the top. Now it's McHale's turn. The long stolen. Here comes Pressey into the hands of Moncrief. 3-on-1. Back to Sidney. His first field goal of this game.
And also we saw Danny Ainge not finishing off that drive. Just off the wrong foot, flipping it up towards the basket. He's got to go strong to the hoop.
Bird on the money. That's 10 for the game and his third field goal. Pressey zips it to Moncrief. He goes to work again and couldn't hit the post up even though Johnson had fell away. Johnson coming back down, trying to cut that deficit to 5 for the champions. McHale and Cummings both battling for the ball.
That was outstanding team defense that time. Cummings came from the weak side, knew he had to give that help on McHale because Dennis Johnson came off the pick and roll and got his hand out there.
McHale outside for his pick. Johnson keeps coming. Missed it. There is McHale again. That is 12 offensive rebounds for the Boston Celtics. And
that's what happens when you allow penetration.
Cummings goes against Bird. Bangs off it. The flat jump shot was on the money. Great shot.
That was a bad shot. I'm sure Don Nelson would be very upset if that didn't go in.
Broadcaster says it's good. Coach says it's bad. All we know is it counts.
Offensive foul on Dennis Johnson.
He was trying to muscle Moncrief. That's his second. Now we've got a timeout here in the Boston Garden. We've got 9:34 to go in the first half. Bucks still ahead. All right, the Bucks are trying to become only the 15 to come back from a 3-1 deficit. The first, the '68 Boston Celtics. Sat Sanders, Bailey Howell, Bill Russell, K.C. Jones, and John Havlicek, the 5 starters for that '68 team. And Hondo Havlicek here today in the Boston Garden alongside his lovely wife Beth, watching the action here this afternoon. Offensive rebounds keeping the Celtics alive. They have 12. They're shooting only 42% from the floor. The Bucks 59% from the floor.
Now Don Nelson has to wonder, should I go with a bigger lineup against the offensive rebounding the Celtics have been doing, or do I stay with this smaller lineup?
Moncrief over Johnson missed everything. Bird off to Ames. It's a 7-point Buck lead. McHale, all of his rebounds offensive, 6 of them. Johnson sticking with it, shot clock inside of 5. He must hurry. He does. Doesn't get the roll. Finally, Cummings comes away with it, gets it into Pressey's hands. Off to Moncrief. They get it to Cummings underneath.
Well, we see the transition game of Milwaukee. They are just doing such an excellent job getting the ball to the right people at the right time.
Taking Parrish.
Yeah, a lot of hesitation there by Dennis Johnson. He should have just taken it strong.
Sigma moved over on the switch and Parrish on the turnaround. He now has scored 8 points. The minutes again piling up for these 5 Celtic starters. Bird with Pressey. And it touches. That's a 2. McHale yanking away his first defensive rebound. Goes with Johnson, and Bird falls down as Pressey commits his first personal.
Well, that was a good acting job by Larry Bird as well. I'm sure Paul Pressey gets a hold of him, but I know Paul Pressey doesn't have that strength to just pull Larry Bird to the floor.
Timeout here in the Boston Garden. This is Game 7. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics. The winner will go on to play the Detroit Pistons. Game 1 will be Tuesday night. That shows you how the Celtics are staying alive.
Just dominating. Now, a couple of things that have happened. They've been able to get the ball inside. They've missed the shots. And also the penetration of the Celtic guards to the basket has allowed their big people to get to the offensive boards.
Jimmy Rogers in the blue coat alongside C. Jones. Jimmy Rogers' son, one of the finest high school quarterbacks in the land, and he will follow in the footsteps of his daddy. He will go out to Iowa, play for the Hawkeyes under Coach Hayden Fry. 8:06 to go, first half. At halftime, we've got excitement for you, too. The lottery. Pat O'Brien and James Brown standing by in New York. Here is the Birdman. McHale again. They can't keep him off the offensive glass.
Well, when you go to the traps, the little zone traps that they're looking to go to, Milwaukee is going to, that opens up the lanes to get to the boards.
Beautiful little jump hook by Paul Pressey. So much easier for the Bucks to score. The Celtics working hard underneath that glass, getting second and third shot opportunities. McHale against the double team. That time it took only 1 shot. He has scored 14 points in the first half.
The thing about the Celtics, it's 1 pass and a shot, and I think they have to use a little bit more time and have more patience offensively.
Into Pressey's hands. McHale defensively influenced the shot, and Parrish battling Cummings. The foul going against Cummings. His first.
Now that's the type of defense K.C. Jones wants to see his team play, stopping the jump shot and contesting that jumper. Excuse me, stopping the penetration and forcing the jump shot.
Moncrief looking for a pick outside. Now he tightens up as Johnson picks up his dribble. Bird puts it down. Gets it into the hands of McHale. He couldn't quite get the handle. And there is Moncrief showing you what a seventh game effort is all about. Into the hands of Cummings. Cummings to the glass with a left hand. Won't fall. Then he bangs into Bird and commits a foolish foul.
That's a foul of frustration, feeling he should have made that basket.
A timeout in the Boston Garden. The Celts are coming back.
And we'll see Sidney Moncrief in this case coming from the weak side defensively and getting his hand on that basketball and going to the floor. An outstanding defensive play, and at the other end, Cummings missed that layup and picked up that cheap foul.
Many of my adjectives have been reserved for Kevin McHale. Let me not overlook the effort being expended here this afternoon by Robert Parrish. Despite a painfully injured ankle, which kept Parrish out of the sixth game in Milwaukee, he has added 10 rebounds to McHale's total. So the two big fellas underneath are shouldering the burden here for the Celtic Green.
One thing interesting about the offensive rebounding, the Celtics were the poorest team in the NBA statistically getting offensive rebounds.
Great effort by Bird, but it wouldn't fall. Parrish, though, gives the Celtics a second chance, and Johnson cuts beautifully.
Well, we see Don Nelson's concerned about the offensive rebounding, bringing in Brewer and Sigma on the court, trying to contain the Celtics, but they're not doing it so far.
McHale slaps away Lucas's effort for a field goal. Let me give you the lineups. There have been some changes. Brewer out there with Sigma, Pressey, Pierce, and Lucas returns after a fine first scored 10 points. Out deep to Sigma, who hands to John Lucas. Lucas off a spinner wants the shot. Gets it to fall.
That's just a great play by John Lucas, because Danny Ainge did exactly what he wanted to do. Stop that penetration.
Now it's Bird inside. Pressey. 12 points for Bird.
Larry Bird reads the defense so well. He felt Pressey on the top side and just rolled to the baseline.
Wow, Lucas feeling fire here this afternoon. That's 14 points. Picks up Ainge. Now they get help and they switch off as he goes over to Johnson. Directing Pierce. Now he switches again. Into McHale, who brings Brewer back out. Puts it on the floor. Cuts inside with his quickness. Goes to the right hand. A fine offensive move by McHale. Ainge with Pressey. They get inside. Playing a fabulous first half. Off to Parrish for the jam.
Now what we're seeing is Kevin McHale is just dominating at the defensive end of the court, blocking the last two shots. Now this is one area that we've seen Casey Jones very upset, and I'm sure with McHale. McHale has not extended himself defensively, and I'm sure it's probably because of the injuries. Now watch him coming over from the weak side, blocking the shot right to Dennis Johnson, and it's a 2 points at the other end. You know, we have 4 players on this court that are great defensive players.
The sixth man, that crowd alive in the Boston Garden. McKeskey has checked in for the Bucks. He will attempt to bang underneath and keep McHale and Parrish away from that glass. Pressey outside over Bird. Sigma with an offensive rebound, and a foul is called on the play. That's Parrish's third foul.
But the last 6 times down the court, we've seen the Celtics defensively stop the penetration. Lucas hit a couple of jump shots, but we've seen McHale blocking a few shots, and that's the way that Casey Jones wants his team to play against this Buck ball club.
Milwaukee once built a 9-point lead in this game. It is down to 1. 4-year veteran out of Brigham Young. Boston's 14-6 run, and Sigma misses, but back into the hands of Lucas with McKeskey underneath, keeping it in play.
McKeskey got away with one. That was an offensive foul going to the glass.
Prusy open for the jump shot. 12 points.
That's a big shot because the Celtics are on a roll. The fans are into the game.
Staggering difference. You would think that the Celtics would hold a lead under circumstances such as that, but they have trailed from the very beginning except for the opening field goal, which is scored by the Suns. Johnson!
Lucas came back to double team on Bird. Bird read the double team and found Johnson for the layup.
The kind of game you'd expect from a 7th game. Bird with Lucas, they whip it over to Prusy, a 3-point shot. Short, and McHale gets to the iron again. Here's Ames. Roberts runs the floor. Now it's Bird from behind the 3-point line. McKeskey rebounding. Now it's Lucas coming inside, and he'll step up to that free throw line and shoot a pair.
The pace of this game is just so quick. I don't know if the Celtics are going to be able to hang in there at this type of pace.
Will they have tired legs in the 4th period? Something to think about. So effective when Lucas gets inside as he does right here. Ames claiming it was all ball. Official Rush disagreed, and Lucas makes him pay at the line. 3 minutes to go here in the first half. Roberts regains control, puts it down, goes hard, and Prusy comes outside. McKeskey also waiting underneath, and a foul going against the Bucks. McKeskey's first. We've got a timeout. When we come back, Pat O'Brien will tell us about the upcoming NBA lottery. Pat, we have put together a list for you that you can take a look at. There are 7 teams in the lottery, and the top 7 collegiate players could go this way. David Robinson, Dennis Hobson of Ohio State, Reggie Williams of Georgetown, Derek McKee leaving Alabama, Armin Gilliam, UNLV, Olden Polynice, who is in Europe, had played at Virginia, and the 7-footer Chris Belp out at Washington. We are less than certain about Belp being in the lottery if you include all 7 teams. If you are a Laker or a Celtic fan and you are agonizing over the prospect that you do not have a shot at David Robinson, let me give you a scenario. Let's say that Robinson is drafted this year but does not elect to sign with that team because he has a 2-year naval commitment. Then next year, that team loses its right to Robinson, and so another team can draft him. He turns that team down also. When he's out of the Navy, he becomes a free agent. I put that to Red Auerbach earlier this morning, and he just took his cigar, took a very deep puff, and exhaled. 54-53 here in Game 7, Milwaukee and Boston. Outside, it's Pierce. Roberts coming hard defensively, and Pierce gets the ball back in his hands. Here's Lucas, missing the 3, and McHale. He has been a giant amongst rebounders here this afternoon in Boston.
Now that the Celtics have stopped that penetration, it'll be interesting to see if Don Nelson goes to some different sets offensively.
Pressing, muscling Bird as the Celtics look for a lead. Roberts couldn't give it to him. Moncrief rebounded. The Garden poised to explode. The Celtics can get back ahead. Lucas's 3 short. 11 rebounds for McHale. And we are even halfway through. Great bounce, but off McHale's hands. And still Boston cannot get the go-ahead field goal. Lucas on the drive. Bird defensively, along with Johnson's great save. Now it's Ainge, it's 2-on-1. Ainge to the glass, and McKeskey ties him up. Woo!
this pace.
Ali Shiva. With Hodges checking back in for the Bucks.
Now, one thing that the Bucks like to do when Roberts is in the ball game, they'd like to get the ball to Ricky Pierce.
Here comes Bill Walton. A dramatic moment. Just the lift that Billy Cunningham predicted when he told you before the game started that having watched Walton, he expected him to try. And here he is for the first time in the series. Cummings turns on him, and underneath, the foul is going to be called. Roberts and Pierce were going up for the rebound.
Well, we saw Milwaukee came out immediately and looked to challenge Bill Walton going into Cummings. Now, I would think Cummings would rather have the ball out on the wing against Bill Walton and try to force him to move his feet defensively.
Fractured that foot. Same bone that he had fractured earlier in his career. Pressey hitting the field goal outside. 14 points for Pressey in the first half. We are closing in on 1 minute to go. Bird spins. Cummings there. Moncrief off. And here's Hodges. Cummings wanted Moncrief, who cut away, and Ainge has it coming the other way. The whistle was blown. The ball may have been out of bounds back there, and it was hard for anybody to hear it because of the crowd noise here in the old Boston Garden.
Careless play by Terry Cummings. Should have made sure about that pass. When you have a 4-on-2 fast breaking opportunity, you must get a good shot. Now that's an amazing stat. 8 turnovers through this first 23 plus minutes of this half with the intensity these players are playing at.
Roberts left alone. They're still not even. The Bucks have been up by 9. Now they are nursing to 2. Pressey's 3. Somewhat unusual shot choice in that situation. Wants Roberts. Pressey will run it down. Crowd wanted a foul as Roberts went crashing to the floor. They get it inside to Pierce. He's got a chance for a three-pointer. A big play for the Bucks in the closing moments of the first half.
And you have to give credit to Don Nelson because Pressey was looking to hold the ball up. And as soon as Don Nelson said, go at it because we have a mismatch at the other end, an advantage because Roberts was on the floor. That's why they got that opportunity.
Brewer will close out the first half, and Cummings will sit and thus be protected from a third foul.
I would expect if you were in that Milwaukee locker room at halftime, you'd find a very emotional locker room. Players just very vocal. Don Nelson almost having to settle them down because they feel that they have a chance now to beat the Celtics.
A chance to step into the NBA history books, if you will. Only 4 other teams have ever come back from 3-1. The 70 Lakers, that was Baylor, Harrison, Chamberlain, Garrett, and West. Johnson comes across the midcourt line. Last shot time here in Boston Garden. The Bucks will lead going into the locker room. Johnson goes to the glass. Brewer coming over, takes him down. His third personal foul. Not giving him an easy layup in the closing moments of the first half.
Well, that's when Dennis Johnson's at his best. When he has those opportunities and takes it strong to the basket.
Lucas and Moncrief.
Don Nelson
wants to close out with this crew for a three-point shot attempt, perhaps, in the closing moments of the first half.
Well, we see he's put his small lineup in there. Matter of fact, there isn't Sikma, Brewer, and Mokeski on the sideline, and he just wants to make sure he pushes the ball down the court. And I would expect they'd like to get the ball to whoever Roberts would be playing defensively and let that player push it the length of the court.
Walton sits down after trying to play. Coming up at the half, we'll have the NBA Draft Lottery from New York. Pat O'Brien, James Brown. Three-point Milwaukee lead. Johnson picking up Lucas. They'll watch Lucas every step of the way if they can. Not going to. Oh, Lucas was able to spin free.
Don Nelson's big concern is defensive rebounding, and obviously because the Celtics had 15 offensive rebounds. I asked him, I said, would you make an adjustment going to a bigger lineup? He said, no, I really prefer not to. I'm going to go with the smaller lineup. We're just going to have to be conscious of checking them off the glass.
And K.C. Jones told
K.C. Jones' biggest concern was stopping the transition game, the fast breaks of the Milwaukee Bucks. And he can either hit the offensive boards or he can go to a smaller lineup and get back better defensively.
No team has repeated since the late 60s as NBA champion. The Celtics want an opportunity as McHale hits a running hook shot. 18 for McHale.
And that's 8 out of his last 9 shots. He missed his first 3 shots of this ball game.
Boston's only lead of the game was 4-2 in the early going. They have moved back to within a point. They were down by as many as 9 in the first half. Moncrief on a post move misses. McHale rebounding, and the Celts can take the lead. Johnson around the Parrish pick. Gets it back to Ames, and Bird rattles out, but McHale picks up where he left off, rebounding here in the second half. Cross to Ames. Takes it back outside to reset. Bird backing on Moncrief on the turnaround. Not there, and Cummings going aggressively for the rebound is fouled by McHale. The key numbers for Boston revolve around this man, their superstar. In the second half of this series, games 3, 5, and 6, those are the games lost by the Celtics. Bird's production was way down. Even more dramatic, his performance in the fourth quarter. He has yet to score a single field goal in the fourth quarter of any of the Celtic losses. Jack Sikma up over Parrish. And again, the Celtics close to within 1, but they cannot take the lead.
And we see right away Milwaukee looking to test Robert Parrish's ankle after halftime.
Sikma is assessed his second personal foul. Dueling with McHale. His job, keep McHale off the offensive glass. And it may cost him some fouls. He has been in foul trouble throughout this series. McHale using the body. Hits Ames for the jump.
And that's something we did not see the Celtics do. When the double team was coming, they were shooting the basketball. They weren't finding the open man.
Knocked away from Moncrief. Celtics another opportunity to go ahead here.
You see Dennis Johnson wanting to post up against the smaller Lucas.
Johnson not to be. Sikma out to Lucas. Lucas on the drive, the pull-up. Not a good shot out of bounds. It'll go over to the Celtics. The most interested spectator back home in Detroit is the coach of the Pistons, Chuck Daly. We had an opportunity to speak with him at halftime, and he said that the Milwaukee Bucks are still running their game plan. It's intact. But as for the Celtics, when they forced Milwaukee to shoot outside, they played much better in the second period. As Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons watch back home, an assistant coach named Dick Versace scribbles here at courtside some of the sets he expects the Celtics or the Bucks to use against Detroit in the Eastern Conference Final. That series beginning Tuesday night. Who are the Pistons pulling for? No doubt about it. They would rather play Milwaukee, and for a very big reason.
Well, because they just feel that Milwaukee they'll match up better against. You know, they're playing against the Celtics.
And they also get the home court.
And they get the home court right. But at least Chuck Daly knows where Dick Versace is. He's out here scouting.
Parrish and Cummings came out strong defensively. Pressey runs it down, and again the Celtics cannot get over the top of the mountain. Pressey on a beautiful drive, lays it in for his 16th point of this game, and it is a 3-point Buck lead. Now it's Bird on a spinner, and it rolled in. 14 for Bird. To Sikma. Parrish his 12th.
The key is he forced Jack Sickman to commit himself. He did not go for the fake. Excellent defense by Robert Parrish.
And now he hooks at the other end, but it is short. Picked up by Parrish. The Chief gets it to fall at 8:34, the third period.
This continues. Don Nelson's going to have to make an adjustment because they're getting killed on the offensive glass.
Their first lead since they were up 4-2 in the early stages of the game. Moncrief can't get it right back. Off to Bird. Here's McHale.
We see the difference of the fast break. The Celtics moving in the air.
The view underneath. The difference that Robert Parrish makes inside for the Celtics. Another offensive rebound off Sickman's hand, and the Celtics move into the lead.
One thing you can tell there on that replay as well is Milwaukee is reaching for the rebounds. They're not attacking that basketball when it comes to glass, and you must attack the basketball.
17 offensive rebounds against Nelson's Milwaukee Bucks. 8 minutes to go in period number 3. The Celts up by 3. Total rebounds 37-16 Boston. How do you rebound? Most coaches say hard work is the key. Shades of a Paul Silas and some great rebounders of the past here this afternoon in the old historic Boston Garden.
And you also rise to the occasion, as the Celtics have been doing on the glass.
Johnson was reaching in on Moncrief, committing his third personal foul. And if there is anything to look ahead to, it is that stat that Billy Cunningham talked about earlier. The minutes being piled up by the Celtic starters here this afternoon.
I thought it was interesting that the Bucks would go back to Moncrief.
Another great defensive effort, and Ainge.
Celtics are just clamping down and not allowing that penetration. Either forcing the perimeter shot or their big people are getting involved in blocking those shots.
Sickman is hit hard by a double team, but manages to retain possession. Slips the ball inside with a pretty pass, but still can't score, and Cummings, coming up after the offensive rebound, was fouled. Cummings will step up to the free throw line as Parrish is assessed his 4th personal foul.
But the Celtic defense right now, the only way to describe it is they're swarming. They're all surrounding the basketball. They're all reacting to each other the way we've seen the Celtics in years past.
You see Sidney Moncrief swaying a little bit there as Greg Kite looks on from the Celtic bench. He may be watching Moncrief too. I noticed something in the first half. Moncrief was hit during one foray down the field, and I thought he came up limping a little bit. Now I see that Sidney Moncrief is slowly retreating defensively. Dennis Johnson coming down on him, and Moncrief looking for the pick outside. But keep an eye on Moncrief's movement for the Bucks.
And K.C. Jones might have seen that as well.
And Johnson goes to work on him. We have talked at length about the Celtic injuries, but the Bucks are playing through some pain of their own. And the Celts are off on a 10-2 run right now. Ainge's 3rd personal foul, with Pressey moving to the free throw line for the Bucks. And when you're coming from behind in the Boston Garden, you cannot overstress the importance of making your free throws.
Staggering, that improvement of Paul Pressey. But as we said, Don Nelson told us even when he was struggling, he knew he had to stick with Paul Pressey if he had any chance of beating the Celtics. Now, one thing I would expect at some point, if this game continues the same way in favor of the Celtics, that Don Nelson's going to have to make an adjustment and maybe look to pick up with full court defensive pressure.
Bird was open, but Dennis Johnson could not get the ball to him. Sickman knocks it away, and now it is Ricky Pierce to the attack. Johnson picking him up. They pass it to Pressey. Paul Pressey has scored 20 points here in Game 7.
And the Bucks are back to within one. The series has unfolded this way ever since last weekend in Milwaukee. Bird spinning inside, could not get the Celtic roll that time.
That was some move by Larry Bird, because Paul Pressey knew that he was getting that defensive help from Jack Sikma, and he wants to force him in that direction. But Bird still has that quickness and drop step to make that move to the baseline.
You're probably thinking that maybe Milwaukee's confidence started to soar last weekend at home. Not so. It was a loss in which they said, we can beat this team. It was game 2, and they went down to the closing seconds tied before Dennis Johnson hit a pair of free throws. And afterwards in the locker room, the players to a man said, we've got a chance. They went back home and split. Subsequently, they have won game 5 in Boston and return to Milwaukee Friday night for a dramatic 6th game. 6 minutes to go in the third period. Boston 72, Milwaukee 69. Pierce against the double team made it fall.
That was just a great individual effort by Ricky Pierce driving to the basket.
Ainge to help Johnson, and Moncrief goes with him hard defensively.
And we see the pressure defensively by Milwaukee picking up. They're forcing the Celtics out on the court.
Pierce fouled Johnson, and Johnson spun off balance quickly to throw up the shot to try and get a shooting foul called if he could in that situation. He could not. Celtics ball out of bounds.
Celtics are very fortunate because the 24-second clock at that point was down to 5, and the Bucks had taken them out of their set offense. Getting very physical down low between McHale and Sikma.
McHale short on the iron. Sikma rebounding, and here's Pierce. Ainge picks him up quickly. He comes around, goes to the glass, and he draws the shooting foul. Ricky Pierce will step up to the line with a chance to put the Bucks ahead. And this is what Moncrief means to this team. 2 consecutive games, he scored more than 30. This afternoon, he has only 1 field goal and a total of 6 points.
Don't be misled by that point production today, because he has the ability to lead this team in other ways. He is their inspirational leader, the emotional leader of this basketball team.
And the Bucks are staying alive at the free throw line. They are 16 of 17 so far.
You know, Brent, what's interesting about this Buck ball club, there was a stretch here in this third period. Every time they drove to the basket, that shot was being blocked. But they haven't changed at all. They're still looking to power it to the basket.
Bucks ahead. Johnson, Moncrief, and Sikma there defensively, and the foul is called. It's number 2 on Sidney Moncrief. So here is Dennis Johnson, who in one memorable game 7 for Seattle went 0 for 14 from the floor. That was a series won by the Washington Bullets. A year later, the Supersonics won the NBA championship, and Dennis Johnson was voted the most valuable player. He has been a winner ever since.
And Larry Bird has said the best player he has ever played with.
Putting the Celtics up by 1. Time remaining, third period.
Now we see the Bucks are going to that matchup with Ainge playing against Pressey.
And Pressey getting Ainge to the floor. Danny in some pain as he slowly attempts to get up here. And there will be an injury timeout used as Ainge cannot get up.
It looked like he got a knee to the thigh.
At the right side, we can watch Pressey come into Ainge, and you can see for yourself.
It looked like he got a knee to his knee, and that's awfully painful. Same thing we saw Lucas running into Larry Bird at the end of the first half. There it is right there. Great picture, Mr. Fishman.
Bob Fishman, the director, in the truck alongside the producer Bob Stenner for this, the 7th game of this Eastern Conference semifinal. And Danny Ainge being slowly helped to the sideline by trainer Ray Melchiori and Dennis Johnson. Another injury problem for the champions. Will it ever end? We'll be right back.
You don't like NBA basketball.
Well, another look, and I must say I am struck by the fact that Danny Ainge needed help to get off the floor. And perhaps that knee, the right one, gives way more than I originally thought. Because in that replay, you can see the agony as Ainge is exclaiming out of pain.
But you also see Pressey's foot on top of Danny Ainge's foot. So with that, he might have really hurt that knee with the right foot of Pressey on top of Danny Ainge's right foot.
I don't want to be overly dramatic, but that is a key moment in this game, simply because of the respect that Don Nelson and the Bucks have for Danny Ainge. And here is the man who must shoulder the burden. Jerry Seasting replaces the injured Danny Ainge at the 4:40 mark, with the Bucks leading it by a point. Seasting played at Purdue. He's a 6-year NBA veteran. And inside, Seasting and Pressey go at it. And Pressey wanted to come back on Seasting. Rush steps in quickly. There was a moment in the championship series a year ago when you remember Ralph Sampson leveling Jerry Seasting.
Well, we see Pressey fighting through that screen, trying to get to Bird. And Jerry Seasting setting that good screen and sacrificing his body. Now, one thing, Brent, I think the officials in the league have to be aware of this, because there's been too many close fights or altercations during the course of the playoffs, and I think the players feel there's two sets of rules.
But I should report that we did not have a fight in the pregame warm-up.
Yes, I know, that hockey game, but I think that the players have to know that they're not going to tolerate this fighting.
Seasting hitting the free throw that has tied the game at 75. So many times when a substitute gets an opportunity, he steps up, accepts the challenge, and on several occasions even becomes a hero. So Seasting has that opportunity here, filling in for Ainge as Cummings up over Bird hits his first field goal of the second half.
You know, sitting here, when he went up for that shot, I was ready to say, that's a poor shot. But he just knocks it in. Larry Bird was right up there on his right hand and played excellent defensively.
Into the hands of Seasting, who spins on Pierce. Gets it outside on the turnover, and it's Pressey. It's 4-on-2. Hits Pierce for the layup.
There we see again that 3-on-2 fast break.
Sigma dueling away with McHale inside. McHale bangs him, stays with it, misses the shot. Parrish on the other side, fouled. He will move to the free throw line. It's on Cummings, his third.
Terry Cummings, when the shot goes up, just turns and looks for the basketball. When the shot goes up, he's got to get a hand on Robert Parrish and know where he is before going to the defensive glass.
Lucas continuing to watch from the Buck bench. He scored 10 in the first period. He has 16 for the game. Not on the board here in the second half yet. Parrish getting the roll, and the Celtics are back to within one. 3:40, third period. Number 7, Boston Garden. Winner draws Detroit. Game 1, Tuesday night.
Now we see that Pressey having Seastings on him, and he's going to look to take him to the basket.
Pressey coming away, Seasting away from him, and Seasting fouled him. With Fred Roberts checking in, along with Darren Day. Day replaces Seasting. McHale takes a break.
Now, I think that was an excellent substitution by K.C. Jones, because at the defensive end of the court, with Moncrief, Pierce, and Pressey in the ballgame, we know that Don Nelson's going to look to post up whoever Seasting's going to play. And now with Darren Day in there, he has the size. It's a more responsibility on Dennis Johnson, though, at the lead guard position.
Well, Billy, at the conclusion of this game, you and I will select the Miller Lite player of the game, and Miller will present $1,000 to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society in that player's name.
The hero still to be determined. 81-78, Milwaukee over Boston with 3:25 remaining in period number 3. John Lucas soon to check back in for the Bucks. Mr. Roberts passes up the pass. Good defense. Roberts gets it back on the drive, gets it into the hands of Parrish, and a foul called.
Now, one of the problems the Celtics have, that their best passers are Bird or Dennis Johnson. The other players are not good passers, so they have to make sure it's in the right people's hands.
So after the turnover underneath the basket, Lucas bringing it down. You know, the Celtics have not scored a field goal in 3 minutes here. It's just Bucks defense. Roberts there with Cummings. Moncrief goes inside, and Cummings will go for the jump shot. Up over the top of Roberts, who does not possess the athletic ability of Cummings.
And we see the Bucks going to Cummings with Roberts playing against him.
Sigma doing Parrish. Now the Chief puts it down and comes with the jump shot.
What a great effort he's giving Casey Jones in this Celtics ball club, because we could see what pain he was in before this game.
On the drive, Pierce score it, continuation, send him to the line.
That's just a dumb foul. There's no other way to describe it. When you're beaten that badly, you let the man go in for the 2 points. But one other thing about Robert Parrish, do you know this year, with his absence, the Celtics have not won a game. So we could see how important he was for this player. They're 0-3 without him.
Talked about those teams that have come back from 3-1 to win a 7-game series. We mentioned the 68 Celtics, 70 Lakers, 79 Washington Bullets have Dandridge, Hayes, Unseld, Greavy, and Henderson as their starting lineup. And the Bucks trying to become only the 5th team in NBA history to accomplish that. And Parrish doing his best to stop them. 18 for the Chief.
That time, the Bucks went to that trapping defense, and the Celtics moved that basketball crisply and got the easy 2 points.
Our first report from the Celtic dressing room on Ames. Bruised right knee. It is being iced, and he hopes to return in the 4th period, but he doesn't know. Meanwhile, Dennis Johnson brings it down for the Boston Celtics. Inside of the 2-minute mark here in the 3rd period, and again it is Parrish. Short that time, but Bird runs it down. Offensive rebound. 18 for Bird. Moncrief wants Cummings, who's got possession. Crowd said he traveled.
He did.
Quick pass to Moncrief, and Hay is there defensively. Johnson bangs into Pierce, gives it up, intercepted Cummings. Off Moncrief, tries to control it, but it's into the hands of Roberts, and Moncrief crashes hard. 2-on-1, Celtics advantage. Johnson for the layup. At the 1-minute mark, Dennis Johnson ties the game at 86.
Turnover.
Day taking Moncrief. Lucas drives through, and here's second inside, and Day very active now for the Celtics. Knocked that ball out of bounds. He was a key player a week ago in that double overtime in Milwaukee.
You know, I think too many times we look at Boston's bench and we look at the box score, the points scored. You can be a very effective player coming off the bench without scoring, and we're seeing Darren Day do this today here for the Celtics.
Moncrief, Bird, and Johnson, and the ball goes out of bounds, and Johnson goes atop the scorers table across the way. The effort of a 7th game. And a lot of emotion etched on those faces. And some don't show much emotion, but they feel it in their guts. Pierce pump faking on Bird. Right-handed shot. Parrish rebounding. Stripped and fouled. 2 on Ricky Pierce. And was Parrish hit up around the eye? Johnson wants to know. Chief tells him he's all right.
Now we see, watch Larry Bird just keep that good defensive position, and watch Parrish get a finger right in the eye. Right there by Terry Cummings.
A good reason why Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has worn those goggles throughout much of the latter stages of his basketball career.
And don't forget last year, Moses Malone having that problem getting stuck in the eye, and now he wears those goggles.
Abdul-Jabbar and the Lakers leading Seattle 1-0 in the Western Conference Final. But the Sonics did not die easily yesterday, did they?
I was very surprised to see such a low score right there at the Forum. Now, Robert Parrish is a man of very few words, and he's truly letting his actions speak for themselves right out here.
A brilliant game, putting the Celtics up by 2. Final shot time here in period number 3. Lucas has to give it up, and here's Moncrief. 1 second. The shot on its way. Score the 3, and there will be a controversy. There will be a controversy over this. Eddie Rush waving Casey Jones and the Celtic assistants back. Now they're conferring with Jess Kersey. Is this 3? Score it, says Rush. Put it down. Now you watch. Did Moncrief get the 3 off in time? He rises up. No, he did not. But they do not use instant replay in the NBA. You can score it. It is Milwaukee 89, Boston 88. And we'll return to the Boston Garden in Boston, Massachusetts after this word from your local station. We hope you're enjoying this Game 7 as much as we are bringing it to you. But there was a moment of controversy to end the third period. And Billy Cunningham, tell us about the clock and what exactly is the rule in the NBA.
Now, Brent, we have to see up in the right-hand corner if the clock goes off. Now, the thing is, the ball must leave Moncrief's hand before that light goes off. Goes on, excuse me. And the light is on.
And the ball is not out of the shooter's hand. One time in which the home court advantage did not pay a dividend. How can that be? Well, because the crowd noise was so loud in here, no one could hear the horn or really tell at that moment. So they went over to the third official and ruled that it was good. 89-88, Milwaukee the winner to take on Detroit starting Tuesday. Sigma muscling inside on McHale, and the foul is going to be called. Now word comes from that Celtic locker room. Danny Ainge will not be back. He will not recover. And it is staggering the number of injuries, the toll that is mounted for Casey Jones. And if you're looking for reasons as to why teams do not repeat as the NBA champion, well, write down injuries as the #1 factor. How can any team be expected to overcome the number of injuries that have plagued the Boston Celtics here, especially late this year? Jack Sigma is perfect from the free throw line in this series. He's hit 31 straight, and he stays that way. 32 of 32.
I would expect that Darren Day is going to see a lot of action in this fourth period. And just remember what he did. He was a big factor last Sunday, making a couple free throws and hitting a big basket in that double overtime.
Confidence surging with the Bucks. And they need to get Bird started early in the fourth quarter. He has not scored yet in the fourth quarter of any of the losses. There will be a jump ball.
Do you think Larry Bird is conscious of that?
Judging from how he reacted in that sequence, I would say he certainly is. In fact, he said to one of the reporters sarcastically after the last game, "Thanks for reminding me." He has ended that skid. 20 points for the game. Pulls the Celtics to within 1. Double up on Sigma.
3 seconds.
Gets the miss off. Johnson rebounding. Boston can take the lead, and they will play the rest of the way without Danny Ainge. Illegal defense is the call against the Bucks.
It's called against John Lucas way back there in the lane, trying to give some help defensively.
That was the second one called against Nelson this afternoon. As a result, the Celtics will be shooting, and you know who will shoot the technicals for the Celtics when he's on the floor. Bird ties the game with that technical. Celtics ball out of bounds from the side.
Now, one thing we see, Lucas matched up defensively against Darren Day.
The whip pass to Bird. Sigma rebounding the miss. Pressey coming to the attack. Hits Pierce. Pierce off the fake. Short. And Pressey with a strong rebound. Coming away, the foul is called against Boston. Roberts' third personal. You're curious about those numbers involving Larry Bird in the fourth period. They look like this.
You know, Larry Bird has lost approximately 13 pounds to get ready for the playoffs. And one thing he does, he just doesn't eat to lose that weight. And I just wonder if fatigue becomes a problem for him, especially playing 46 minutes a game.
Bird jumped out on Sigma that time. Roberts fielded the miss. They're approaching the 10-minute mark. Game is tied, 91 all. They double Johnson. He comes free, and Sigma with a great defensive play on the block. And here's Sidney Moncrief. Moncrief on the bounce pass. Pressey to the layup. And Paul Pressey has scored 26 for the Bucks.
Perfect pass by Sidney Moncrief.
They pick up Day, who gets it over to Johnson, who's left alone, and hits the jumper to tie it. 9:37 to go in regulation.
You really couldn't ask for anything more than we have today in the second game.
Great move by Lucas. Got inside, protected his body and the ball, and scored. 18 points for the veteran guard.
And from the Celtics standpoint, that penetration was just too easy that no one came over to give any defensive help.
Day doubled. Gets it back to Johnson on the penetration. And Sigma again is there, but Day rebounds the block. In and out. McHale rebounding. Comes back up and the foul is called. McHale will move up to the free throw line for K.C. Jones as Pierce commits his third personal. We've got a timeout in the Boston Garden. 9:03 remaining. So Bucks with Moncrief out. We have Lucas, Pierce, Pressey, Sigma, and Cummings. For the Celtics, who are well out Ainge, we have Johnson, Day, McHale at the line, Roberts and Bird. Billy, what do you see on the floor with Day in the lineup for KC?
Well, I think one thing Don Nelson would like to see is the Celtics go to Darren Day in a post-up situation against John Lucas. He would prefer to see the ball in Day's hands than in either McHale or Bird's hands.
Missing the second one. Down inside at 9 minutes. Milwaukee ahead by 1 point. 95-94. Lucas quarterbacking for Coach Don Nelson. Cross the pressure. It's a 2. Rebounding Sigma. Comes in strong.
If you ever wonder what offensive rebounding is all about, Jack Sigma just displayed it there. That was just sheer work, sheer determination to get that rebound because he had two Celtics surrounding him.
And that will cause K.C. Jones to make the following move. Robert Parrish returns at the 8:39 mark. He has played a spectacular Game 7, especially when you consider that he was unable to play in Game 6 because of that injured ankle. Offensive rebounds, 23-5. The Celtics with an edge. Moncrief, the report is they are retaping that bruised leg of his. He took a blow in the first half. It's a 4-point Buck lead.
I can imagine how frustrating it must be at this moment for Moncrief and for Danny Ainge sitting in those locker rooms.
On the turnover, Lucas pressuring on the pull-up over McHale. Hits the jump shot, and that's 20 against against Casey Jones and the Celtics for the left-hander.
That was a clinic fast break. 3-on-2. The defense of the Celtics gave up the jump shot, and that's what John Lucas took.
Day with the jump shot using the glass. He played in some big games at UCLA, and he played in the big one last Sunday in Milwaukee.
And we see defensively the Bucks are scrambling, throwing the traps, trying to take the Celtics out of their strength, going inside and keeping Larry Bird out of the action.
Bird chasing Plessy. Plessy hits Cummings on the cut through. Off and into the hands of Pierce. The rub of the green, if you will, for the Bucks. And now it is Sigma drawing the foul, and he will shoot a pair of free throws. Sigma perfect so far. 6+ games at that free throw line. And also, it would appear that he will not foul out of this one. He has only 2 personals himself. So working on that string of 33 straight free throws.
You know, one thing that's interesting, you'd like to see all trades work out for each team. And we see with Alton Lister how that's worked out for the Seattle Supersonic and his effectiveness. And we see what Jack Sigma has been able to do for this Buck team.
Oh, the Sonics could be a franchise on the rise. They get the Knicks pick. That's going to be number 5 in the lottery. Going to get a good player there. They get 2 firsts coming from the Milwaukee Bucks in the next 3 years.
We see Larry Bird on the opposite side of the ball, not being involved in the offense.
Hale swinging inside. Perry's keeping it alive, knocked away, and here's Lucas. Now Lucas pressuring, gets it into Plessy's hands, and great effort by Plessy for that field goal. It's 104-96 at the 7-minute mark. A moment of truth, if you will, for the champions. They're going to use a timeout right now. And uneasy sits the crowd here in the Boston Garden. There's a ripple going through the crowd. They know the time is running down. The Colonial National Invitation is next, the final round. The leaderboard will be joining that right after Game 7 concludes here. Billy, let me ask you about Larry Bird and his continuing difficulties in the 4th period.
Well, because of the trap, forcing the ball away from Bird, there's one ingredient missing that's so important to Boston, and it's right there. Larry Bird, and if he's not involved in this, we could be going to Milwaukee.
Bird is 1 of 3 shooting here in the 4th period of this one. Milwaukee on a 9-2 run. And against Bird and the Celtics, Paul Pressey has exploded for his playoff high of 28. So it is Seasting on the floor in this set along with Johnson, Parrish, McHale, and Bird, and it's McHale's jump hook. Parrish's offensive rebound, staying alive on the inside.
Now, one thing the Bucks cannot do, they cannot become tentative.
They were not on that trip. Ricky Pierce took it right down off the dribble. 16 for the man who was voted the best 6th man in the NBA this year.
Because so many times when you get a lead, you become tentative.
Knocked away from Bird, and I must say, in our assessment of the superstar, we should not overlook the defensive prowess of one Paul Pressey. His confidence against Bird must be surging here.
Well, he knows his teammates are going to come and give that help, like just there.
Now Bird snaps in the jumper from outside. A 6-point Buck lead. Pierce again, this time missing. Sigma tracking down the offensive rebound. And Milwaukee doing better off the glass in the latter stages. And again in the 4th period, the question, do the Bucks have fresher legs than the Celtics? Sigma bounces off, sets. Notice how patient he was when he took his time.
Well, if anybody knows that move, it's Dennis Johnson. The 2 of them won a world championship together up in Seattle. We see the trapping defense, the ball on the opposite side from Larry Bird.
Hale turning, double team by Cummings. Chance for a 3-point play.
I don't know how you stop Kevin McHale because he has so many moves. The only way I think you can stop him is just double team or just deny him the basketball because he has so many offensive moves. Plus, Kevin McHale does not like to pass the basketball when he gets it down low in the post.
Seasting picking up Lucas. And Cummings to pick so Lucas can get in the middle. Inside to Pierce. Pierce, 18 points off the Buck bench.
Now they're going, what the Bucks are doing is a three-man game, looking to get the ball to either Pierce or
Seasting. All the way is Plessy. An offensive foul is called. He was out of control, and that is his fourth personal. Nelson not agreeing, however. On the side after that offensive foul and the turnover, and that is only the fifth turnover here this afternoon by the Bucks.
I think that was a tough call on Paul Pressey.
Seasting hit his last shot. Now it's 2 in a row.
What happens now is that Jerry Seasting has gained the respect of the Bucks, and they'll play a little differently defensively again.
Lucas had to give a big shove to get Seasting off it. Cummings going to work on Johnson. Swings inside with a jump shot. A little too flat. Goes after the rebound. Tries to track it down. And it'll go over. Johnson bringing it up against Pressey. And the foul is called. And that's his fifth. And now the Bucks perhaps losing just a little bit of poise here. And they need their leader. And here he comes. Sidney Moncrief on the floor to see if he can establish a little poise with this Milwaukee team at the 4:30 mark. They are up by 3.
Well, he did that last year in Game 7 against Philadelphia in Milwaukee. He was the one that came in and he steadied his ball club down and they beat Philadelphia.
He'll come with Seasting defensively. Bird, big moment. Seasting fouling. His second personal.
And he'll go to the foul line. The Celtics are in the penalty.
Celtic bench up on the side watching. Roberts taking off his jacket. He'll check back in for Jones. 4 minutes to go. Moncrief makes it 111-109 with Lucas watching. Seasting receiving a round of applause for the 2 field goals he scored as Roberts replaces him.
And don't be surprised the next time the Bucks come down the court, if Roberts is guarding Pierce, they'll go to Pierce and look to isolate him. See the little trapping defense trying to take the Celtics out of getting the ball down low to Larry Bird. And it works.
The slough on Perry shoots out high, and here comes Johnson. McHale starts his assault, bounces off Sigma, hits the field goal. It's a 1-point Milwaukee lead at the 3:37 mark. Cummings drives through, and he is fouled. 5 fouls on Roberts.
That was just a powerful move by Terry Cummings to the basket.
Milwaukee at the line has hit 27 of 28 free throws today. They have been spectacular. 21 in a row. And they miss. Hitting the second one. It's a 2-point Buck lead. 3:25.
Celtic coaching staff up, barking out offensive sets. Cummings with Parrish. Parrish turns inside. McHale runs down another offensive rebound. Here's Bird, doubled, has to get it inside. Passing lane was cut off by Sigma. And a Celtic turnover. Bucks come back down.
Larry Bird just committed himself to that shot, and they double-teamed him, and he had no place to go with the basketball.
Sigma clearing out on Parrish. Gets it over to Pressey, and they come inside to Cummings. He bumps off Roberts, wants Pressey back, forced it inside. Roberts has it on the turnover.
One thing we've noticed with Terry Cummings, when he makes a turnover, commits one, he usually comes back and makes another mistake like that foul.
His fourth personal. We'll be right back. Billy, we now approach the final moments of what has been a superb seventh game here in the Boston Garden. What would you expect from these two teams?
Well, I would expect that Boston, if they can, they'd like to get the ball in the hands of Larry Bird and allow him to make the decision either to shoot it or to go inside either to Kevin McHale. I think at the other end, I was surprised that they didn't go to Ricky Pierce against Fred Roberts because I think that's a mismatch.
Pressey batting the ball out of bounds. We have 2 minutes and 37 seconds left in regulation. Milwaukee ahead by 2, 113 to 111. Roberts staying on the floor. Danny Ainge cannot return because of an injury. Bird turning around is fouled by Pressey, and Pressey has fouled out of the game. And Pressey is complaining to Hugh Evans. He doesn't want a technical in this situation. That is a huge loss for the Milwaukee Bucks.
See what he gets caught doing down here against. Well, you see he's got his arms right around Larry Bird. That's a good call by the official.
So Pressey, who started out so slowly in this 7-game series, sits. John Lucas comes in, and really, what will they do defensively against Bird?
Well, against Bird, it means Moncrief is going to have to accept the challenge now and have to go after Larry Bird. And no one person's going to stop Larry Bird. The team is going to have to stop Larry Bird.
Bird ties the game. 2:30.
And we also see, Frank, the tempo of this game has changed drastically. It's a slower tempo. It's going to be the execution at the offensive end of the court. And can Milwaukee make that adjustment because they want to fly up and down the court?
Pierce inside. Missing. Loose. Dennis Johnson. A 2-on-2 break. Johnson bounces it to Bird inside. And Ricky Pierce commits his fourth personal.
Now, Dennis Johnson just makes an outstanding decision right here on the break. He had a chance to take it to the basket, but he realized it, saw the mismatch, and waited for Larry Bird.
A Bird who is starting to soar in the Boston Garden, and the crowd realizes it. Larry Bird. He has been in 4 Game 7s. From the free throw line in Game 7, Larry Bird is 41 of 44. And he steps forward now with an opportunity to push the Celtics ahead here at the 2-minute mark.
Do the Milwaukee Bucks come down and open the court and look to penetrate? Or do they go to a set play looking to isolate one of their players?
Sigma brings Parrish out high. Sigma has scored 9 points in the fourth, but that production was early. Pierce up over Roberts, doesn't get it, and here's Johnson.
Well, Ricky Pierce settled for the jump shot. Excellent defense by Roberts. In that case, he's a lot quicker. He's got to look to put it on the floor.
Celtics looking for a little daylight in their lead. Bird swings inside of an injured Sidney Moncrief. Draws the foul, and Nelson furious.
And you can just feel this crowd becoming such a factor that the players are drawing energy from this crowd. This is why you play the regular season, Frank, to get that home court advantage if it does go to a 7th game.
7th games in Boston. These Celtics are 11-2. And there is a big reason why. No one has done a better job of putting together a professional franchise in any sport than Arnold Red Auerbach. Bird, scoreless in those 3 previous fourth quarters, now has 13 today. Lucas's 3, not there. Parrish going for the rebound, steps out of bounds. Could not gain control of it at the 118 mark. It's 117-113. Celtics leading by those 4 points. Don Nelson will huddle up the Bucks.
Now there's plenty of time left in this game, Brent. And the one thing Don Nelson's got to let the players know that let's make sure when we get that opportunity offensively, we get the good shot. And they have not done that the last 2 times down the court.
Sigma has shouldered the scoring load in the final 12 minutes, but he can't do it alone. Sigma faces up on Parrish, stays with it, and Parrish rejects it out of bounds. Johnson goes to save it, crashes out of bounds and gets it done. Dennis Johnson hustles his way into a Milwaukee turnover as he bats the ball off Sigma, and Bird says, let's go quickly.
He is so lucky he did not get hurt right there.
What champions are made of. McHale coming out.
They're going to try and use as much of this 24-second clock as possible.
To the hands of Bird, who throws it up. Parrish with an offensive rebound. And back outside. And the precious seconds tick away on the game Milwaukee Bucks.
That was such a smart play by Robert Parrish. He could have gone up and maybe converted that 2 points, but he knows the clock is more important to the Celtics at this point.
And Parrish coming up is fouled. He'll step to the free throw line. Seconds remaining, Billy, and Parrish has come back after missing the 6th game with 22 points and 19 rebounds here in Game 7.
It's a shame we don't have a Most Courageous award as well as an MVP award for today, because Robert Parrish, I just watching him yesterday in practice and seeing the pain he was in trying to run. I don't know if he'll be able to play if they get past the Milwaukee Bucks when they go to the next step, playing against the Detroit Pistons.
A Boston-Detroit series would start Tuesday night here in Boston.
Now you notice the lineup. Well, we're going through a timeout right now. It'll be interesting what kind of lineup that Don Nelson comes back with.
An injured, wounded champion, caged, if you will, here in the Boston Garden, but refusing to yield an inch. Even after they lost still another player, Danny Ainge, who went out with a sprained knee, the Celtics regrouped, the battered Celtics, and they came down the stretch. And they did it with a lot of effort here this afternoon. Out-rebounding Milwaukee so far, 57-27. And their injured center, Robert Parrish, returning to play a brilliant game here this afternoon for them. And Larry Bird coming alive in the 4th period. But yet with 33 seconds, the Bucks still have a chance. They are down by 5. Hodges, a 3-point whiz, gets it over to Sigma. Sigma puts it down the floor, drives left-handed, misses, and Parrish wrestles for the ball, can't come up with it, but the whistle had sounded. There will be a jump ball. And it could be the closing moments of a coaching career in Milwaukee for Don Nelson. That story is still to unfold.
Yeah, at first I didn't Dennis Johnson was going to get back here because that's the ball game.
The Boston Celtics are still alive. It'll go over to Milwaukee, and Sidney Moncrief signaling a timeout for Don Nelson. That is their last timeout. You know, Casey Jones never is voted Coach of the Year. No one in basketball has done a better job than he has this year. You know, there's an awful lot made about no team repeating in the NBA since the Celtics in 1968 and 69. That's true. But since 1980, there have been 7 championships. The only team to win the title other than Boston and Los Angeles is Philadelphia. Otherwise, it's been the Lakers and the Celtics, or the Celtics and the Lakers. You talk about 2-team dominance, and now those 2 great champions are only 1 series away from meeting still again. The Lakers holding a 1-victory edge on Seattle. The Celtics must run out the final 13 seconds on Milwaukee, and then they would open up with the talented Detroit Pistons, whom everyone expects to battle the Celtics all the way in the Eastern Conference Final. Lucas's 3, not there. Knocked away from Roberts. Foul underneath. It'll go over. Boston will bring it down as Moncrief commits his 3rd personal, and the Celtics will move up to the free throw line. Where will Don Nelson be next year? If I had to guess, he will either wind up as coach of the New York Knicks or as general manager of the Golden State Warriors. We'll wait and see. At any rate, for those fans back in Milwaukee, even if they lose, they have given a game and determined effort in this series, coming all the way back from 3-1. His record with Milwaukee, and remember, he was the youngest coach ever to win 500 victories. And the man who is conquering him here this afternoon, Casey Jones, was a teammate with Nelson right here in Boston for 2 years. They formed part of the championship team. Hodges is inside the 3-point line. Clock down to 2 seconds. And the crowd waiting to explode. The Celtics have won another 7th game at home.